it was always
last night.
If you're
was
0-2, you might as well throw out the rest of the season.
All of
You're just not going to make
noise.
It was only like a handful of teams,
holdouts, who's
right?
in camp, who
they
wants
even
to
gave
get
us
paid,
stats
all
to
this
back up
stuff,
this
that
law
for the
or
49ers.
rule. And here's the
just didn't
problem
matter.
with that stat.
This team,
Bad
is
teams
the number
are
one
always
skill.
going to find a way to start
This is
over.
a Mark Schlereth thing.
That's the
number one
reality.
Skill is
In the NFL, it was always
last
if
night
you're
was
0-2,
proof positive
you might
that
as well throw
despite
out the rest of the season.
all
You're
of
just
the
not going to make the
presumed
playoffs.
noise.
It was only
all
like
of
a
the
handful of
contract
teams that ever made
holdouts,
the playoffs, right?
who's
We
in camp,
they even
who
gave
wants
us
to get
stats
paid,
to back
all
up
this
this
stuff. That
law
for the
or
49ers.
Rule. And here's the
It just
problem
didn't matter
with
for
that
them.
stat.
This team,
Bad
is
teams
the
are
number
always
one
going to
skill.
find a way to start 0-2.
This is a Mark Schlereth thing.
That's the
number one
reality.
skill is
Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate everybody for joining in today. I know we are a little bit late. I can't explain my reason why I'm late, but I got some really cool news right before coming on. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So, the story of the day is obviously Davante Adams to the Jets. Now, this signals one of two things to me. A, we all know this game is played by human beings. And one of the things human beings love to do is quit, especially when things aren't going well. You are going to see over these next few weeks, and Jets fans, this is a positive because I know they've been killing the Jets all day because I could go over all the reasons. Aaron Rodgers at 40 is no longer a false multiplier. Davante Adams at 31, 32 is no longer a top 5, top 6 wide receiver who makes a clear immediate impact. I could go over the firing of Robert Saleh. Seems like it was clearly not the right decision. I could tell you all this stuff, but I want to be optimistic. It's a Tuesday. I want to be optimistic. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm excited because, again, people, when it's not going well, it's easy to quit. Not, especially in football, where you are physically putting your body on the line on a game-to-game, play-to-play basis. It's easy to quit. You don't want to sustain that injury. Maybe you've already gotten paid and you're not trying to get hurt. Like, there's multiple reasons for teams to quit. And you're going to see a lot of that, especially as trades are allowed to start happening and guys can start requesting to go other places. Teams are trading away guys. You're going to see a lot of teams quit. The Raiders, who are 2-4, look like they're quitting. Get rid of Davante Adams. Max Crosby's potentially out of there. The Raiders, it looks like, as of this moment, maybe I'll be wrong, but it looks like they're ready to fold, quit. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have enough talent. Let's start looking at draft picks. There's other big media networks talking about should the Raiders tank. Since they have they're one of the only teams that don't have a rookie quarterback or a planet quarterback. But then there's teams who have not given up, and those are going to be the teams that pursue guys. Teams like the Jets, who just traded for Davante Adams. And even if you don't think he is the player that he once was, which he's not, and Aaron Rodgers is not the player that he once was, clearly not. This is at least an attempt to say, hey, we are trying. Hey, we are still in this. We don't view our 2-4 as the other teams that are 2-4. Remember, your record and depending on your success is based on your perspective. I root for the Denver Broncos. 3-3 with dead cap from Russell Wilson and a rookie quarterback and a top 10 defense. I'll take it. That's a really good season in my opinion. But there's other teams that are 3-3 and worse, and it's not a good season because they have their star quarterback making a lot of money. You know, say what you want about records. Does anybody have a worse situation right now than the Cleveland Browns? Not even the record doesn't even matter. They're paying a guy $230 million guaranteed, and they don't want him. Forget what the record is. They are in the worst situation in the NFL, and it's, in my opinion, it's not relatively close. But the Jets at least being willing to go and get this guy to pair with Aaron Rodgers, who your team is what your team is going to be at this point. And so even if we don't like Rodgers, and again, everyone's been using today because of the press conference last night, him throwing Mike Williams under the bus, it's all been used to attack Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not here to say that he doesn't deserve the criticism, because I think he does. But we can all criticize until we're blue in the face. That's not going to change anything. This is the Jets' reality. This is their quarterback. This is their team. And they are now deciding to say, hey, look, we still think our defense, regardless of the coach, has the personnel, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Quentin Williams, that we still feel like we will be one of the better defenses in the NFL. They also feel like our offense with Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and now Devontae Adams is going to be good enough to succeed. And we think we are close enough, so we are going to go for it. Because you're all killing today as well. We're killing the Jets. Like, we have to pick a side. We're killing the Jets because, and again, this is not a claim that this is going to save the Jets season. I just want us to be fair. Everybody collectively is killing the Jets today because they got Devontae Adams because of Aaron Rodgers, and we're also killing Jerry Jones because he spazzed on a reporter or radio host because the radio host called him out for not doing these things. So we got to pick one. Do we want the guy who does stuff or the guy who doesn't? Like, and who are we going to kill? Like, we have to make up our mind. And again, you are going to see teams quit. You are going to see some of these. Everybody in the first month of the season, they don't know if they're good, bad, otherwise. Specifically bad. Bad teams don't know they're bad to start off a season. This goes for NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. The Chicago White Sox did not wake up on day one and go, we are going to be the worst team of all time. That was never a thing in their mind. They thought they had a chance, quote unquote. We all talk ourselves into this. We all believe our team has a chance. I picked the Broncos to make the playoffs 6 out of 7 seasons, and they were arguably one of the 3 worst teams in the NFL during that stretch. Like, we all do that. So, again, Devontae Adams is not the quote-unquote answer to fix the Jets. Aaron Rodgers at 40 is not the answer, quote-unquote, to fix the Jets. But if I'm a Jets fan, I at least feel better today than I did yesterday. Like, you lose the game on Monday night, you lose the game against Denver, you lose the game against the Vikings, and it just all feels like it's going downhill. Robert Saleh, who no one was going to defend as a great coach, he's out of there now. Aaron Rodgers, who's the quarterback that you deemed the franchise savior, he's still there, and now he has another weapon that he's familiar with in Devontae Adams. Would you rather be the Raiders trading away Devontae Adams and possibly another player? Would you rather be the Browns, who are stuck with that number 4 for several more years on a guaranteed contract? So again, I just want to be fair. If we're going to kill the Jets for attempting to do something and Jerry Jones for not doing anything, can we just pick a side? Can we decide which product or which tactic we really are going to attack? Like, I don't think the Jets are going anywhere. But I didn't think highly of the Jets going into the season. But if you had told me, and again, as a fan, would I want my team if I felt like they were close? And I do think Jets fans maybe delusionally think they're close. Yeah, I would want the team that's going after players. Moving on from there, man, have you guys looked at the NFC North? Do you realize how crazy this division is right now? Do you know the top 4 point differential teams, which is a big Vegas stat? Like, Vegas loves this. Vegas loves point differential and Vegas loves yards per play, both offensively and defensively. Those are usually how they get to their quote-unquote who are the best teams in the NFL. The NFC North has the top 4 point differential teams in the NFL, and they have the Detroit Lions, who, if you're a gambling person, every team that Detroit has played this season has lost the following week. Now, luckily, that cannot happen this week because the Cowboys are on a bye. But you have the Lions, who are maybe the best team in football as far as how they've played this year, or they're up there with Kansas City and Baltimore. We'll see power rankings coming up. You have the Minnesota Vikings, who are 5-0 with Sam Darnold, maybe the best coaching combination of O'Connell and Victor Flores in the NFL. You have the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams throwing 4 touchdown passes. Maybe the rookie of the year now that Jaden Daniels seems to have slowed down a little bit. And then you have Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packers, who he's also out here throwing 4 touchdowns and is finally back healthy and looks like he is going to be the quarterback they gave $250 million to. This division is stacked. And this division has great rosters. Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota. Chicago's, if you're not calling it a great roster, has great young players. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love. The Lions have maybe the best offense. I think, in my opinion, now that Philly feels like they have stepped back without Jason Kelce, the best offensive line in the National Football League and a great defensive line. We'll see what happens with the Aiden Hutchinson's injury was horrific. But this division, we always try to look for it, like who's the best division in football. And coming into the season, it was the AFC North because we expected Baltimore and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin just always kind of, they're always around there. And we knew the Browns had talent despite their quarterback position. There was a few years ago, it was the AFC West when all those free agents all those free agents went to Denver and the Chargers, and the Chiefs are obviously the Chiefs. But this is actually the best division in football, and it's not relatively close. They've all got 4+ wins. They've all got a whole bunch of talent. They've all got great quarterbacks. Yes, Jared Goff is in the great quarterback conversation. And Sam Darnold, who we might not look at that from a career perspective, obviously, but he has absolutely played this year as an elite high-end level quarterback. So the NFC North is just killing it, man. It's the best division by a mile. Everybody won last week in that division except the Vikings, who are on a bye. The Bears are on a bye this week. And if you look at the schedules, it looks like it's going to be another sweep for the NFC North. It's incredible. It's just, this division is, again, you got young players, you got old players playing well, you've got coaches, you've got, again, Matt LaFleur won 2 games with Malik Willis. Like, if him and O'Connell, who are in the great coaching debate, Dan Campbell's one of the great culture setters, you look at the overall rosters, like, this division has just literally everything. It's an embarrassment of riches for just one division. Oh, man. When we come back, we have to start separating who's actually a good team versus who's just living on their reputation because they've been a good team. And I don't know if we ever really know when that's going to happen. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I feel bad for you. Man, he's straight cheeks. Why would Denver draft him at 12? Bro, he's a second-round pick. Did y'all just see the same game I watched? Probably not. You probably didn't watch the preseason game. But Bo Nix looked great. And he looked every bit as advertised. Which, remember, the advertisement of Bo Nix was not, oh, he's Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May on a talent level. It was good quarterback, understands the system, is very accurate, can be productive, and he has Sean Payton as an offensive coordinator. And he looked every bit the part of it. And don't tell me it's only preseason, because if he was bad, you'd be dragging him for playing bad during the preseason. And remember, very important note, Packers didn't play their starters. Good NFL players against backups, that's what they do. They dominated. And Denver dominated last night. Bo Nix, QB1. Absolutely my QB1. This is HardFoul Radio. So, and it's always weird when we decide to, we try to put a line in the sand for when we should start making absolutes about a new season. Any sport, right? You could be great one season, you could be not so great the next season, you could be great a season, you could be terrible the next year. But we give you the benefit of the doubt. The longer you've been good, the longer you've been great, or the longer you've been bad, the longer you've been terrible, we just assume that is you until you give us pretty overwhelming evidence that that is no longer you. And I think this is one of the strangest years in the NFL. I think there was an overall lack of quality football. I think most people have been figuring this out. There's a lot of games where quarterbacks have less than 10 completions entering the fourth quarter. Defenses, while you might say it's on the rise, it looks like a lot of bad offense optically. But with that being said, we give grace to the 49ers. We give grace to the Kansas City Chiefs because they were just in the Super Bowl. They have Patrick Mahomes. The Niners still have this crazy roster. But when do we start to give that up? Again, I've been on here as a Chiefs hater. Publicly, I don't deny it. The Chiefs at some point, we can no longer call a great offense because they're just not. There have been a great defense the past year and a half, but offensively, besides a handful of games, they struggle. Mahomes has to make only a few plays, and their offensive production is literally worse than at any other point during Mahomes' career. The Niners, their defense, which has had Fred Warner, who Fred Warner specifically is still playing great. But Nick Bosa's not playing great. Tafunga's not playing great. Hargrave then unfortunately lost to injury, but even before that, he wasn't playing great. And that Niners defense as a whole has struggled. When do we start to ask the question, and when do we start to put the flag in the ground, as they say, that the Niners are no longer a great defensive team? Because right now, if you were to look at it, the great defensive teams in the NFL, and this is also a question with Baltimore, and I've been told I have a Baltimore bias. I don't care. But the great defenses right now in the NFL are the Chargers, the Steelers, the Vikings, the Broncos. Those have been the most, if you want to look at pressure rates, if you want to look at points per game, yards allowed, those have been the best defenses. But we're not willing to say, oh, they're better than the Niners yet, because we see the names. We see Bosa, we saw Hargrave, we saw Warner, we saw Tafunga. We're not willing to say they're better than what the Ravens have with Roquan Smith, Matabuke, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton. Like, these names keep coming up. And this is something that, again, you are cutting edge and innovative, and then until you're not, and once you're not, you're in line and on pace with everybody else, and then one day you're outdated. And the Chiefs offense, which at one point was innovative, was way above the level of everybody else, now feels like they're outdated. The Niners, who I still believe in, we'll see that again when we see power rankings, were innovative. Like, the Niners as a concept feel like they have everybody is starting to catch up to them. Think about this. Kyle Shanahan, and we all know the Shanahan system. It's great. Love it. Wish he was in Denver. Things I'll never get. That system is now used by multiple teams. Meaning, what was cutting edge and unique to them is no longer. And that's how all sports works, and that's especially how the NFL has worked. You start winning, people start taking your coaches, people start taking your plays, copying ideas. That has been how it's worked forever. And again, when do we do it? And we do it. It's so weird too, because we do it with bad almost immediately. Almost immediately. If a team is just bad, we are willing to say they're bad until they have overwhelming evidence to show us. The Browns are bad until they have overwhelming evidence to show us they're just bad. Despite the Browns have made the playoffs, they made it with Baker Mayfield, and they made it last year with Joe Flacco. But we still view the Browns, and I know this season because of their quarterback, they've played bad, but we need overwhelming evidence to go from bad to good. Like, we just don't give that up. And we won't give it up for this. Mahomes is number one quarterback in the league. What stat or what shows us that he is still there? His team has been great, and he's made a handful of plays that has helped him in these big games. But the Chiefs' defense has been the reason they've been to 2 straight Super Bowls, not Mahomes. Has Mahomes made plays when they count? Obviously. 2-time defending champ. We can't rag on him. We can't say anything negative because of that. I've been on here saying for the last 2 weeks, Lamar Jackson's been the best player in the NFL, and over this season and last season, he's been the best player in the NFL. But because he has a bad playoff game, we say, no, he can't be that. It has to be Mahomes. At some point, they do, but at some point, our narratives, we got to figure out when our narratives are going to start changing. With that being said, we are going to bring Will in here. Oops. Sorry for the quick delay. And with that, we are joined by the Father of the Year. Will is in the building. How you doing?
Well, man.
Amen. So I want to say congratulations. You've now joined as another member of a fan base similar of a rookie quarterback who's won 3 straight games. I want to say congratulations. Welcome to the club. Don't act like Bo Nix didn't win 3 games in a row before Caleb Williams. No. Y'all just got a good QB.
Pull up the stats.
Y'all just got to. You want to pull up the stats? We can pull up the stats. You ready for this? Because I think you think it's going to be crazy. I think you think there's a crazy difference.
I don't think it's a crazy difference. I just know it's a difference.
So Caleb Williams in 2024, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Man, that's 5 interceptions already. Ooh. So does Bo Nix, but Bo Nix is at 8 and 5 total touchdowns. But my man be running for his fucking life. Hey man, look. So is
Bo Nix the future? Is Bo Nix the future of the franchise?
1,000%. 1,000%. It's gonna be shown on Thursday. We're about to get Dennis Allen fired. 1,000%. 1,000%. Look. Does it look so? Caleb obviously gets most of the attention, and that's valid. It's first overall pick. We understand all that, but it looks like it's finally now. And I know everyone wants to go to him, but like the Bears are starting to get a run. The defense has played good all season, good to great. The offense now has a running game. Keenan Allen finally looks healthy. The connection to DJ Moore looks more than just on paper. Like to me, this feels not just like a Caleb Williams story, even though he is the biggest star. This feels like Chicago's offense as a whole, Shane Waldron and the other players, like it feels like they're all finally starting to click. Do you think this is a total offensive show, or you think, yeah, just Caleb is elevating everybody to this stage?
No, I think they're elevating each other. I think the running game helps the passing game. Like those first couple of weeks, the running game couldn't get going. So in turn, the passing game couldn't really get going consistently. So I think everybody is helping each other right now.
Do you think now the Bears' schedule will get tougher in the second half? The majority of the division games in the second half of the season. This is, in my opinion, I don't think this is a fair critique, but if you were going to play critical of Caleb at the moment is, this is the easy part of his schedule. They're playing not great defenses, not great teams. With that being said, though, everybody, to me, if you're a great player, you look great against good or below average. Like, I don't buy into the whole preseason stuff. Like, you just play great in the preseason. Who cares? If you didn't play great in the preseason, I would be more concerned because you're going up against guys who are backups or third stringers, guys who are not even going to be in the league. And it's like, hey, why are you struggling against them? Do you think that when the Bears start to play the Vikings, the Packers, do you think we're still, how's the way to phrase this? Are you still confident in what you see against them, against the lesser competition, that you feel like this is going to carry over once they start playing some of their harder games?
I think I'm confident that it'll carry over into these tougher games. And of course, not saying that we're gonna win them all, but I think so. Like early in the season, of course, you got a rookie quarterback trying to find his footing, but then you get to maybe week 3 or whatever when he kind of start putting it together a little bit, and then now. Like when you look at, like everybody says that these are easy games, like these are easy games when you talk about the Jaguars and the Panthers. But I feel like before both of those games, everybody was like, "Oh, it's a trap game. It's a trap game." And like when you're a good team, you go in, you're supposed to whoop on these teams, and we did just that to the Panthers. We did just that to the Jaguars.
No, I agree.
Like, so it's like, and like, yeah, when it comes like. The games are gonna get tougher, but I do feel like for a rookie quarterback, I think it was good to have some of these easier games early in the season, because now you start to build your confidence, you start to get adjusted to the pace of the game, you start to get rhythm and find that connection with your receivers, and for offensive coordinator and a new system, you're able to kind of start figuring out what works and what doesn't work and all of that stuff. So I think these first 5 weeks is gonna help set us up for the rest of the season.
No, that's that favoritism out there. Look at just for everybody listening. Look at that strength of schedule, and specifically look at the defenses that Bo Nix has had to go up against with comparable stats. Bo Nix, they talking about he only scored 15 against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Played Seattle anyway. We're not going there.
How many yards he at?
Bo's yards, he's at 1,082.
What Caleb
at? Caleb is at 13-17.
That nigga Bo Nix a bum. No, shout out
to another.
Shout out to Bo Nix, man. I have no quarrels with Bo Nix.
Why my monitors turn off? Can you still see me? Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
something happened.
I have no quarrels with Bo Nix.
I better not. I don't know. Anyway, so another quarterback that you called a bum a few weeks ago. So obviously the breaking news of the day: Davante Adams to the Jets. You were very kind of without even having to be asked. You decided to let the world know your opinion about Aaron Rodgers a few weeks ago. So with that being said, your opinion on Aaron Rodgers at 40, does Davante Adams to the Jets doesn't matter, or are we just expecting something out of a 40-year-old quarterback that we've never seen besides Tom Brady?
It better fucking matter. I got Davante Adams on my fantasy team. So go off, A-Rod.
But he's playing with a quarterback that you're not that high on.
He on the other side of the country. We ain't worried about those.
Oh shit.
But no, I mean, no, I think so. I would say I think I don't know how big of a difference that makes for the Jets. Like not, and I mean, because it's not like it ain't like it was a team where they didn't have like a good receiver already. Like, you know what I mean? I just don't know. I don't know if that fixes their issues, even though on paper, like, I mean, it should when you look at what they got in Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, they got Lazard, they got Garrett Wilson, now adding Davante Adams, they got Mike Williams, even though he ain't been playing well.
No, I
but
agree.
I mean, so it's like I don't know if he fixes their issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I don't know how many times Aaron Rodgers has been sacked this season. I know the Bills was putting him on his ass last night.
The Broncos got him on his ass. The problem is too, it's hard to judge. Again, there is something to, like, you have to balance out what defenses are you playing, what conditions, like, so it's not just a straight stats thing. And like Denver and the Bills, 2 of the last 3 weeks, those are 2 of the top 5 teams in the league in pressure, so you go and get hit more. But the O-line has not played great by any means. Going over to basketball, Lonzo Ball. Now this is where you got to eat it, because the Bears, I understand the Bears right now, Chicago. The Bears are on a high. The Bears have Chicago thinking like the Bulls have been this weird space of like they just love 41 and 41, but they are playing champs. Lonzo Ball returns for the first time in 2 years.
First off, don't disrespect my team again. But
Lonzo Ball returns for the first time in 2 years. Is Lonzo Ball Let me ask you as a fan, are you expecting Lonzo Ball to be like a real contributor? Or you think he's just going to be a cool story? Like, do you think it's just going to be, oh, it's cool that he finally, like, he worked his way back and he was able to play again? Or do you think he's actually going to be like an impact on this team where they're going to go from that 38 to 41 win margin, they actually get to like the 45, 46, get a real seed?
I think so. I feel like I just got to see him like in games because of how much time he missed. I think if he's legitimately healthy and he can get back to kind of who he was beforehand, I think Lonzo can still be an impact player, especially with just what he brings on both sides of the ball. Like, of course, the last few years before his injuries, the last 2 years or so, his 3-point shot was improving. We know what he could do, kind of attacking the basket and distributing the basketball, but also on the defensive end. I think. So I would have to just see how healthy he really is and if he can actually look like himself. I don't know if he's the one that's going to take us from a play-in team to like a 6 seed or nothing like that. So I don't know if he's that big of a difference maker. I mean, and we do got some young talent over there. I like the guy we drafted, Matas. We got Josh Giddey. We'll see what's up with that. Kobe White had a good season last year. So I mean, I think we got like some good young pieces. I mean, I don't know. I think I always just talk about being in the middle. Like I don't see us being like more than the middle of the pack team still. And I always just talk about how that's the worst place to be. Like, you're not good enough to compete for a title or even make a competitive run in the playoffs, but you also not bad enough to get a lottery pick.
I think if Lonzo does show that he plays if Lonzo plays well and and I think his game is easier to come back as far as injury wise. Like, he's not a jumper. He makes a lot of those outlet passes, so he's not doing anything like that's like the difference would be like if Zach LaVine was coming off those injuries, I'd be a lot more concerned because his game was a lot more on athleticism above the ground.
I'll say, not to cut you off, but like I think when you talk about the defensive side of the ball and kind of some of those lateral movements, so, and I feel like that's the part of his game that'll probably have the most impact for a team like us.
I do think if he does play well and shows that he can be who he was, I do think that will actually, unless it's totally just on ownership, they don't want to move, him and LaVine now becomes an actual interesting package for a team. And so if they were ever going to finally say, hey, look, we're done doing this, we're done being around this, like they already got rid of DeRozan, didn't re-sign him, I think having two of those guys would finally like push them to like, all right, we're finally going to move away from this core of the team, this specific roster. To one of our oldest arguments that we've had, so about 5-6 years ago, you and Tony used to kill me because I said Giannis over Embiid. And even though we've come to terms on that, Embiid, it was announced yesterday, probably never playing back-to-backs again. I think that sounds nuts. Now, I'm assuming that doesn't count for the playoffs because I know there's always one series that plays like game 1 and 2 back-to-back. So I'm assuming if it was the playoffs, he would play back-to-back. How high can you be? Like, everyone thinks Embiid, everyone knows his skill set. Everybody knows he could do stuff. Probably that it's him, Hakeem, and maybe Will, if someone finds that highlight film. Like, there's just shit only they can do.
Right.
But how high can you actually be on like a quote unquote players list if you never play back-to-backs again like Embiid? Like, can he still be one of the best in the league?
You said, can he still be?
Yeah. Like, if you're not playing any back-to-backs.
I guess it would depend on if you feel like the best in the league is based off of skill and what you do on the court. So now, because am I judging you for what you do on the court or what you do when you're not on the court? Because now, if he never plays a back-to-back, like, I can understand how that's going to impact maybe the way people view him. But if I'm judging him for what he do on the court, and every time he plays a game, he's dropping 35 and 15, 2 blocks, like. So am I going to judge him for for the product that's on the court, or am I going to judge him for when he's not on the court?
I think it's.
But it's like so. And then my next question to be, how many back-to-backs are they even scheduled for? So now, if he doesn't say that, say for instance, it's maybe 10 back-to-backs in a season. I mean, and I don't know what the number is, and he missed and he doesn't play in no back-to-backs all season, and he plays 72 out of 82 games, this ain't a conversation.
No, I agree. I think with him, the problem is like
niggas just care that he said it. He could have did it and not said it, and nobody would have known anything.
No, I do agree with that point. I agree with that
1,000%. So it's like if I'm like me being who I am, like just the way that I look at things, I don't really like. I mean, if I'm like, and I mean, you know, of course we know I like Embiid and all that stuff, but I don't really give like what Embiid doesn't impact me. Like if Philly win a title, then like I give a fuck. Like like I don't care that much. I like him as a player, but like for me, it's not. It wouldn't really. Depending on the amount of games he actually misses because of that, I think it would have more of an impact. But if he played, I mean, in normal seasons he may play 65 games or whatever the case is. So if he's playing around the same amount of games, why should I look at it any different today than I did 3 years ago?
That's right. I think the problem is I think last year only played he didn't make it to 40, and so I think there's a natural. Like people already feel like, all right, he's already going to miss 10 to 15 games due to injury. And let's say he takes 10 to 15 games off because it's back to back. And obviously those could overlap. But if he ends up around that 35 to 45 game mark again, like we all know how great he is when he's playing. But it's, in my opinion, I guess, is LeBron right now is probably doing the best on the least amount of games I've ever seen in my life. LeBron still feels like he could be a top 5 to 10 player any given night. And LeBron, we know at his age, is only going to probably get you around 50 to 60 games max. And Embiid is close. The people that were talking about him even like always putting up like playing MVP-ish because he's doing 33 a night. I'm like, or even I think it was almost at 35 at one point, like 35 a night and only 33 games. Like I do look at you different than if you're, at least with James Harden, I was never a huge fan of.
Yeah, I mean 30. Yeah, if you only playing 30-some games, that's definitely a thing. Like last year he played 39 games. 2 years before that, he played 66 and 68.
Yeah, and if he's around that 66, 68 number, then fine.
That's why I'm like, if he plays 65 plus games, and because like you said, the back-to-backs could overlap, whatever, lingering injuries and things like that. I mean, and you know, I'm assuming that not playing back-to-backs is trying to prevent like maybe some of those lingering injuries and make sure you're ready for the play, whatever the case is. Like I don't really give a fuck. Like I'm not defending like him specifically, but I'm just looking at it and saying like, all right, if he won MVP playing 68 games or whatever, and if he plays 65 games this year but don't play no back-to-backs,
yeah,
like do I care? No.
No, I agree. 60. If you get to say in today's NBA, you get to say, I know the award rule is 65, but if you're doing 60 plus, if you're his level of player, like if you're Giannis, you're Embiid, you're Jokic, some of these guys, yeah, 60 plus games of them, and I know I'm getting it for the playoffs. I'm taking that over respectfully, even like someone like, I know Paul George got hurt, but even someone of Paul George's level, and if he played 82 games, yeah, 60 games of Embiid is better than 82 games of Paul George. No disrespect to Paul.
And it's like, I mean, and it's like, too, it's like, listen, everybody, like, I'm sure, and I don't know, but I'm sure, like, you know, we've heard over the years about Embiid doing the different things, changing his diet, and maybe, you know, I'm sure he probably put a lot of money into his body, but everybody body can't sustain it. And it's like, you know, if you're trying to extend your playing career, like, as a player, it's like, yeah, as fans, we want you to go out there no matter what, and we're going to be super critical and judge you about everything. But it's like, I can go out there and play 82 games, and this be the last season I ever play because I'm running my body into the ground. So it's like, I think, so it's like from a fan perspective, it's like we want to criticize and judge everything. But it's like, if I know I'm injury prone, like, why wouldn't I do things to kind of help prevent those injuries so I can be more available for my team when it matters the most? Like,
no, 1,000%.
So it's like you kind of in a catch-22 because it's like, you know, you got people that's gonna say, oh, you know, he's soft, he don't want to play back-to-back games and all that stuff. But it's like, then when I get hurt, it's like, oh, he always hurt. It's all, you know, he always injured. He can't stay healthy, and it's like you're really in a lose-lose.
No, 1,000%.
Unless you're just one of these niggas that don't get hurt.
That's a fact. There's only a handful of them ever. Hey, no, with that being said, though, appreciate you for coming on. As always, we're going to get more. The Bears on a bye week this week, so I'll let you predict the score for that.
50-0.
Hey, man. All right, no, appreciate you for coming on as always, bro.
All right, man.
Shit. Said I'm probably talking about throwing the practice squad. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. I've never fully understood how people, quote unquote, break down film, especially people that aren't actually professional athletes. I think there is obviously something to the people that have been in these meeting rooms, that have been in these conferences where they're talking about breaking down game film and like the actual players who have to go out and do it. But then when you're not, I think we're all just kind of guessing at the core of it. So I saw this play, and this is the one I want to point out. I saw a former player, I'm not going to name anybody, but I saw a former player analyze this play, and I saw basically a Twitter analyst. But I shouldn't call him just a Twitter analyst. An actual analyst on a network, but he felt like a Twitter analyst. And it was the Caleb Williams play to Keenan Allen, and the former football player said, Keenan Allen made a read where he either got to go up the seams or, depending on how he pressed the safety, he got to basically make a decision whether he was going to cut in or if he was going to cut out towards the end zone, right? The difference in basically a long curl route and or go to the corner. And the analyst, who had some maybe Caleb Williams bias, said Caleb threw him open. Now, I fully understand how you could make this decision or how you could come to this conclusion that Caleb threw him open, because I think to the average fan, that's what it looks like. Guy's not open. Caleb throws a pass to a spot that nobody currently has, and the receiver, quote-unquote, adjusts. But the former player says, no, look. The guy made the receiver actually made the read, and Caleb just had to understand when he looked at the receiver, okay, this is what he's going to do based on the positioning of the safety. Why do I bring that up? Because there's this controversy today because of what Aaron Rodgers said about Mike Williams, and I saw almost every single analyst, and again, I'm not trying to be the Jets defender today. Trust me, I'm not. But almost every single analyst went at Aaron Rodgers and said, you know what? He's throwing Mike Williams under the bus. He threw the interception, this, that, and the third. Boom, boom, boom. And then I saw two former football players, two former wide receivers, one of which is in the Hall of Fame, said, yeah, Mike Williams screwed up. In almost no other profession are we accepting of this totally blunt way of critiquing someone at their job. But in the NFL, or professional sports in general, where these guys make millions of dollars and no one looks the other way or thinks 2 seconds about it when someone gets fired, which firing means relocating family, relocating children. You know, yes, they have these huge contracts, but, you know, when's your next payday if you do get let go, fired, etc. But if Aaron Rodgers was right, maybe you didn't like the way in which he did it, because maybe you keep that stuff in-house in the locker room. I get that. But what if he was right? What if Mike Williams did screw up the route? What if Mike Williams was the guy at fault for the interception? Again, two people, and in this one, multiple people, saw the same exact play, and we saw two totally different things. And I'm not going to say I have the right answer. I've never played professional football. I never played high school football. I'm not going to understand like I'm some genius when it comes to route concepts or game film. There's things I see that I think are easy to translate as a fan, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, this is clearly the way it is. It's clearly not the way it is. The other thing I want to talk about before we're going to get into power rankings is garbage time, because I've heard this. So Broncos lost to the Chargers. They were down 20-0. Cool. All I've heard from analysts is, and a lot of analysts just like to be critics. If we're being honest, they're not really analysts. They're just critics. They like to go on and say, hey, this person played bad. This person played bad. Boom, boom, boom. And that's all they do. Critics portraying themselves as analysts have been saying, oh, well, Bo Nix really just got totally destroyed by the Chargers. Only no points the first 3 quarters, and he only scored in garbage time. Well, what's garbage time? Because the highlights I saw of Bo Nix were, even in the fourth quarter, yes, they were down a lot, but he literally had to, in 2 of the biggest plays, there was Derwin James on a 7-man blitz screaming off the edge, and he had to spin away and get away from Derwin James and run for a first down. There's a throw to Valet where he's escaping a 6-man rush from the Chargers. So tell me, I'm aware that prevent defense guys picking up yards, I am aware that does exist. But where was it in that game? Because I didn't see it. And unless you just decided that your analysis for the game was done after 3 quarters because it was 20-0, and you could just go on TV and say, oh yeah, Bo Nix just did that at garbage time, whatever. I didn't even watch the fourth quarter. Why not just say you didn't watch the fourth quarter? Again, I said this in our last segment, where it's, when do we stop giving these teams the benefit of the doubt for the teams that are bad, the teams that are good? When does garbage time stop? When does garbage time become, and again, the Broncos lost, they deserve to lose the game, et cetera, et cetera. There's things I could complain about, but I'm not going to. When does garbage time turn into epic comeback? Do you have to totally complete it? Is a comeback totally worthless unless you get all the way back there? or some of the most exciting games you've ever seen. A team gets down, and then they start roaring back, and then it's almost, but not quite there, a play at the end by the team that's won the majority of the game. The Ravens-Cowboys game was exciting. Say what you want about it. Say Jerry Jones can say what he wants about it. The Ravens got off to a really big lead, and it was exciting in that third, fourth quarter because Dallas started to make a game out of it. Once Dallas started it, that's when it became exciting. Now, does that just not totally count at all because it was in garbage time, or it was like, what are we doing? I'm just asking for a friend. When does garbage time start? With that being said, let us get into, and I will say this really quick before we get into power rankings. My step ladder, my step ladder. I'm trying to think of names, guys. I'm experimenting right now. Deal with it. I do have a bias towards one team specifically, because I'm going to sound like a hypocrite if you listened earlier in the episode. But I do have a bias for one team specifically. No, it is not the Broncos. So, stepping up our step ladder here to begin at number 10, I have not given this team a lot of credit because I have thought this was more of a coaching / early season schedule success. I wanted to put the Bears there. I do think the Bears are close, but I think the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels have been just slightly better. I think the Bears right now are sitting at 11-12. Look, their schedule as far as the defenses they played have been easier than not, but you can't take away the way Jaden Daniels is performing, the way Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury especially has just totally renovated. Like, this is the most renovated football team in recent memory. New ownership, new GM. Remember, we talked about in the offseason. I liked a lot of what they did because normally huge turnover would not be a thing that I would like, but considering they ripped out so much clearly awful, and even if they only replaced it with good, do you know the difference between truly awful and good? It's a lot. And that's why Washington, who's been a laughingstock, is now a top 10 football team, in my opinion. And again, these are not just my top 10 for, like, to quote-unquote snapshot a part of the season and go, look, this is who was great in week 3. This is great in week 5. These are genuinely the teams that I think are going to be in this conversation. And I think 10 through 14, I'm still sitting around on just the outside of this. The Bears, I think, are right on the outside of this. The Broncos, I still believe, are on the outside of this. The Falcons, I believe, are on the outside of this. So these are genuinely the teams I not only believe in now, but I believe in going forward, as well as these bottom 5 teams, similar to what I said last week. I just don't think can win the Super Bowl, but I do think they are the most exciting stories of the season. And that's and number 9 being the Green Bay Packers. What else can you say about Matt LaFleur, man? What he did, Malik Willis, keeping this team afloat, getting the 2 wins with him. Jordan Love came back. Jordan Love finally looked like himself yesterday. The game last week, we just don't, you make people forget. Quote, this is a tip to Levis. You make people forget that you made maybe one of the worst throws of all time, like Jordan Love did 2 weeks ago. You throw 4 touchdowns in your next game. Really easy way to make people forget. This team is extremely well coached, really talented. They are super young, and again, I don't think any of these teams here have the potential to win a Super Bowl, but that does not disqualify them for being one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. I just don't think they have quite the roster or overall talent or quarterback as the teams that are in the top 5. And number 8, and I'm probably underrating this, has anyone watched the Bucs? Like, they just put up 50 against the Saints. Baker Mayfield is, again, September MVP is stupid, but he is playing like an MVP level-esque player. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, this defense is and that makes me a little concerned about him, but they do have names. Antoine Winfield, when he comes back healthy. Like, this is a 4-2 football team that a lot of people could argue could be 5-1, and they went in and handed Detroit, one of the best teams in the NFL, their only loss at home. Like, this might honestly be too low, but I have a little bit of Baker Mayfield bias. This isn't the team I was talking about, but I have a little bit of Baker Mayfield bias where I'm like, I think he is a really good quarterback. I'm just not willing to put him in the great category. I don't care if the Vikings are 5-0. This is a 1,000% to me. This is a coaching story. This is Kevin O'Connell. This is Brian Flores. This is a really cool story for Sam Darnold, but it's still Sam Darnold. And I'm just not willing to put them much higher than this because I think the 7th best team in the NFL is probably your cap with Sam Darnold. Now, that's still incredible. Everything they've done to Minnesota this year has been absolutely, without question, incredible. But it's Sam Darnold. And I'm not willing to put him above these other teams. This one I was worried about. This is at number 6, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, again, I just feel like he's figured it out. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's not a matter of, will he throw interceptions? Yes, obviously. But he's just figured it out. Something about him, it just feels like he's figured it out at the quarterback position. And now, with the addition of Amari Cooper, a real number 1 wide receiver, I think you're going to see more plays out of this offense, more big plays, more explosive plays. And again, I just feel like he's figured it out. And you can say what you want. Oh, well, he loses to Mahomes. Everybody does. But this feels like if there was ever a year he was going to beat Mahomes, this feels like it's the year. And number 4, this is the bias team. I'm sorry, number 5. This is my bias team. I just can't tell myself that when I watch the San Francisco 49ers, despite everything I said earlier in the show, I just can't convince myself they're not one of the best teams in football, especially when you see like Ayuk, who's eventually going to get there. Again, Jennings is a receiver number 3, Debo. Like, this is all without Christian McCaffrey too. And so I just can't, again, maybe I'll be wrong on this by the time the season's over, but I just don't have it in me to look at the San Francisco 49ers and say they're not one of the 5 best teams in the National Football League. At number 4, I've been on Houston since early last year. Go back all the way to our preview show, Tony and I did. Now, I didn't expect them to be as good as they were this fast, but I liked a lot of the pieces Houston had for a very long time. I liked D'Amico Ryan. CJ Stroud is amazing. The Nico Collins injury hurts, but Joe Mixon able to run the football. This team just feels like they do so much right. This is honestly, now they're cooler than them, but it feels like a lot of the early New England Patriots teams. Defensive head coach, star quarterback. You have a receiver here. You've got a defense that just makes plays. This is probably my most liked team in the NFL outside of the team I root for. Man, this was hard not to put the Lions at number 2. The Lions they went into Dallas, smacked Dallas, which that was easily the most impressive. They had offensive linemen running X position wide receiver against the Cowboys. They clearly showed they are the class of the NFC. They're the best team in the NFC. Their roster to me feels like San Francisco, but they're just younger. Who knows if they'll be able to keep it together the same way San Francisco did. But this roster has stars everywhere. Yes, the Aiden Hutchinson injury is genuinely devastating, not just because of the way that it looked, but he is a lot of this defense. He is leading the league in pressures by a mile. This defense still is yet to play top 5, top 4 level. But the defense, without Hutchinson, I still think will be good enough, and their offense is amazing. Offensive line, defensive line, what can you say about it? Dan Campbell, culture setter. And again, they just smacked the Cowboys, the best win of the weekend. But I also think a lot of that is that Dallas just isn't that good. Dallas has been giving up over 40 points a game at home. And so Detroit to be they didn't do anything original, which I think takes away some of the sting from it. The Ravens, man, look. Lamar, Derrick Henry, they are out rushing teams by 150 yards a game. Teams don't even run for 150 yards a game. They are outrunning other teams by 150 yards a game. They just feel you have to get up on this team and you have to blow them out immediately, which is hard to do. Because if that game is close, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, they just keep running the ball. Henry is just physical as hell. Guys are going to make big decisions on tackling him. I don't blame him. 6'2", 230, running downhill. Lamar playing at an MV3-esque level. Like, if this is one of those teams you're going to look back on, and if there wasn't a current dynasty in the NFL, you would say, oh, obviously, they're the best team in the National Football League. But number 1, and again, I said this last week, they deserve it right now. The way they've played against the Saints on Monday night, that was their showcasing of an A game coming out of a bye week. And now that they're out of the bye week and they're about to play the San Francisco 49ers, this is the worst week for the 49ers to get them. Andy Reid's record, we've all seen it, coming out of a bye week. He's got 2 weeks to prepare. I think the Chiefs are going to look, if there was ever a week they were going to look great, this is the week. Especially coming off the week they did look great against the Saints. Again, I don't think the Saints are that great, but 400-plus yards of total offense, almost 500. And I think coming out against the 49ers, who the last time they played them in the regular season, Mahomes lit them up. Andy Reid coming off a bye. This is the current dynasty in the NFL. It's hard not to put them at number 1. And that is our step-it-step ladder for week 6. Week 7. Yeah, week 6. Yeah, week 6. We are here. With that being said, this is HardFoul Radio. We'll take a quick break and then come back with our closing statement. So a theme I always talk about is optimism. I said this before the break. When you're a sports team, giving optimism, giving hope to your fan base, it's hard to say it's an obligation because it's a business, but it's what I would prefer. You know, I always say you could be bad and exciting, but don't be bad and boring. Like Williams, he only played the one series, put up the 70 yards, but he looked as advertised. Jaden Daniels, same thing. If you're Washington, and Washington we've talked about, total reboot. New owner, new coach, new executives, everything's brand new. They just took everything out and said, hey, look, this is who we are going forward. Jaden Daniels, he has the big throw down the sideline, which supposedly the story is he was able to audible out of. He had the touchdown run. He looked as advertised. Drake May probably had the least optimistic part. Not a lot of throws. Not any of the huge wow plays that the first two guys made. But still, he didn't look bad. Penix looked solid. He looked like he was in control. Guy, J.J. McCarthy, same thing here. 2 touchdowns. He probably looked the best in comparison. My guy, Bo Nix, I got $40 on him for this year. 15 to 21, touchdown. He looked like, again, he looked like a guy who it's what they considered Bo Nix to be. So we are back to close out this episode. I want to give a fun, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but I think we've all ragdolled the Cleveland Browns a lot, especially growing up when I did. The Browns were a historically awful franchise. I was just watching a clip where Hugh Jackson famously said, we're not going to be 1-15 next year. And they weren't. They were 0-16. The Browns, again, the Lions before these last couple of years, it was the Browns and Lions as the most dysfunctional NFL franchises of my life. And obviously right now, it's easy to pile on the Browns. They have the nasty guy at quarterback who they're paying $230 million, fully guaranteed. We've all seen the dead cap numbers that if they do it, they wouldn't even be enough money to pay like it wouldn't be enough money to pay like a college team right now. It's insane how big his dead cap hit would be. So they're pretty much stuck with him. And Stefanski, who I do think is a really good head coach, just has to take one for the team and has to keep saying, no, we're going to play Deshaun. We're going to play him. We're going to play him. We're going to play him. He gives us the best chance to win. Lying to everybody, and he knows it. But what if, hear me out, they know already they have to play him, essentially. And they have to pay him and they have to play him. He's just too much money not to play, and you can't get out of that contract. But what if the actual goal is, because they realize how bad he's gotten, that what if the goal is to tank by playing the $230 million quarterback? Hear me out. If you tank and you end up with one of the worst record or the second worst record in the NFL, and you get the number 1 overall pick, and you draft a Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, the guys who we expect to be at the top of this list, at the top of the draft, then you just bench him. Because it's actually cheaper, as crazy as it is, to bench him than it is to cut him. And he can't force his way out unless he wants to void his own contract, which in that case, win-win. Because here's the other alternative with the Browns. You keep playing him, and he keeps struggling, and you alienate the best roster you've ever had. And eventually a Denzel Ward no longer wants to play there, and a Myles Garrett no longer wants to play there. And these guys on offense, you've already traded away Amari Cooper. Like, when does, it will just, again, you're going to alienate and piss off the best roster you've ever had. So what if the goal is, hey, we tank, we play them, we don't really have a choice, let's make the most out of this. Stefanski maybe has a deal with ownership or general manager, like, hey, look, we understand it's not you. He's just playing so far below his level of what we expected. We keep you, we run back a rookie quarterback, and you make him QB2, or hell, QB3, or hell, a healthy scratch. What if they're tanking in plain sight and everyone is viewing it as the downfall of the franchise? What if it's really just the right thing to do? Because it's the safest way to tank. It's the safest way to lose. It's theoretically, while it looks weird, it's the smartest way to lose at the moment. It's the smartest way to tank. Yeah, you got to play this guy. $230 million. Got to do it. And what if that leads to the number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick, and you get your actual franchise QB? You've already got your head coach in place. You've already got your defensive pieces to help that young quarterback. You just got rid of Amari Cooper, but you just paid Jerry Jeudy all this money. You've got a David Njoku. You've got a good offensive line. You've got Nick Chubb, who'll be another year removed from his injury and should be healthier. Again, this Browns team, talked about in the offseason, they are extremely talented. Their problem is solely at the quarterback position, and they magnified the problem because of how much money the quarterback makes. So yeah, what if they're tanking in plain sight? Just a theory to throw out there into the world. With that being said, appreciate everybody for listening. As always, this